The stars are bright, we own the night. The stars are bright, we own. The stars are bright, we own the night. The stars are bright, we own. The
Okay, so before we get started, and as we wait for Michele to come on and give her a few minutes for everybody to come on. And stuff. I'm so excited. I like this little idea. Okay, so guys, as we wait for some more viewers to come on, happy Thursday, everybody. My name is Yolanda Brunson Sarabo, and I am the myeloma chick. So if you didn't catch the first show of this series, which I basically interviewed myself, which was kind of weird, but this is a platform that I'm giving for patient advocates who are not necessarily in the multiple myeloma ends, but who are in other advocacies, and just to have like a candid conversation, what it's like for everybody's diagnosis, not too deep, not too heavy. Some of the questions that we have pre-thought kind of helps them and continue the conversation for the 30 minutes that we have. So at this particular moment, we're waiting for Michele. Just to give you a little heads up, this evening we have a conversation with Michele Nadeem Baker. So Michele is from the CLL community, patient advocacy. CLL is chronic lymphocytic leukemia. Okay, and when she pops on here, she'll give us, I guess, a little heads up in terms of what that means and what is that.
Hi, I was
Hi, how are you? I was worried for a minute. How you doing?
so good to see you. I've been trying to get on. You know how in the beginning it's always so you never know. It's like it's not clicking, it's not doing it, it's not connecting.
Right. You look great.
We're so close and we haven't seen each other in so long.
I know. It's just like this thing is a mess. But just to I gave everybody a little heads up about who you were, but of course we're going to get more into the conversation. But Michele and I met what 3 years ago or something, and it was like a great encounter. And then the pandemic struck, so that kind of ended like really meeting anybody else, to be honest with you. So
It's with me, and because with what we each have, we're immunocompromised, and I don't know about you, but the vaccines haven't really done a whole lot. And I don't know if the antibodies will work for CLL patients, because for those who don't know me, I have a different kind of blood cancer called chronic lymphocytic leukemia. So I guess my thing is CLL women strong, like we're strong, like Wonder Woman.
Of course.
But I'm the CLL chick, I guess, because you're the myeloma chick. And
right.
And Yeah, it's so frustrating and not knowing when I can get back out there. And I'm sure I know that we spoke a couple of times during this in text.
Right.
And
It's crazy because it's funny because someone on my I call everybody my squad who follow me and who I follow, and someone brought a good point that people in the blood cancer community, unfortunately, these are the people who are being, you know, devastating in terms of passing away because of this stupid virus. But like we hear the numbers, I think each state or depending where you live, like the news, it'll say, okay, the numbers is here, there, there. But it would be rather interesting to see who exactly is being affected more with this COVID mess, because I'm hearing a lot about the blood cancer community. Like I'm hearing about it, but I'm not really hearing strong news feeds in terms of exactly what is going on. Like, should we really, 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 really be worried?
I know for mine, yes, because part of what I do is I interview the top CLL specialists in the nation
Right.
for some of my work as a reporter for these things, and also for other, and I know you do some of this as well, and also for
Mm-hmm.
other blood cancers, and I hear that yes, we do, and there was a huge wake up call for us. Not that I want to talk about these sad things and
I
COVID,
know.
because I know that a lot of people don't understand what we're going through out there, and a huge wake up call. And there was a gentleman in the CLL community who was another big patient advocate in it. And he was a pharmacist, and he was known as the CLL pharmacist. But he had been the head of pharmacy at cancer centers, and lo and behold, he's diagnosed with a blood cancer, with
Wow.
chronic lymphocytic leukemia. He was just so great for everyone. And he had to retire because of COVID, because he couldn't work because of COVID. He couldn't work because it was at the hospital. And he had been the head of pharmacy at Roswell and Moffitt. And he didn't get antibodies from the vaccinations. He got many. They thought maybe he did, but they couldn't measure them. And then he did the monoclonal antibodies that you get if you've been exposed. And he got some monoclonal antibodies. He went to cover the huge conference for blood, the American Society
Mm-hmm.
of ASH. And I'm not sure if so he took a chance and traveled. I don't know if he caught it there or when he got back, but he got COVID, and they could not get the new with the different variants. The Omicron variant is most responsive to, I always say it wrong, maybe you know how to say it, Sirtovimab. It's the one that,
Yeah, I think you did better than me at pronouncing it.
Sirtovimab. That's it. I had written it down, and they couldn't get it for him. In Florida, it's hard to get it where he lives. And they gave him the other things that people get, and they didn't work. And he was in the hospital 4 weeks, and he passed away.
I was praying that you did not say, because I was gonna is he okay?
We used to co-moderate things together, and so many people, it was devastating because he did help. It's interesting. You don't realize, right? But he helped so many people because they would write to him, I'm thinking of this or this for treatment, and here's what's wrong with me. And he would talk people through it, and he would help them, and he'd explain their medications to them. Just, he was a pharmacist. He did what you do, but he devoted himself, and he was learning about multiple myeloma. He spent 20 minutes a day because it was the group, the NCAN support group that I believe you're on the for. And because we had multiple myeloma patients, we have them in it. He was learning about it, and he had also had patients at the hospital with it. So he was learning more and more every day, which just speaks to his character, right? So that he could help even more people. Yeah, he didn't make it. And it's just, his wife said that for all of us, the warning, like if you just say you get COVID, if you start to feel better, don't go out and do everything. He was better after so many days and started, thinking everything was great. And then it got really bad. And then he felt better again. And then, things went really downhill. So and I saw
it's just whatever this virus is, because, some people feel that, it's like a common cold. Obviously, a lot of people don't die because of a common cold, you know. So this is something at a higher bar in terms of you really have to be careful, you know, just basically whatever you're out there in the world, we still have errands to do. People still have jobs that they have to do. And some people can't do things virtually, unfortunately. But with that said, you still have to be careful. You know, I think people are, oh, I want to go back to how it was. Like, I kind of put it as how it was before wasn't necessarily that good either, because you had people who weren't washing their hands or just doing things that were really nasty.
Yeah.
You want to go back to that?
Things that they
Okay.
should know better, right? Like sneezing in a crowd without, you know, or coughing.
Exactly.
And
Like,
going
don't
to,
do that.
and in our culture, going to work when you're sick is like, yeah,
Yeah.
I remember doing that thinking I was being like a hero.
Me too. I'm guilty as well as, you know, well, let me go to work. It's a little, you know, I have a little fever, but let me go and do, you know, sit in my, you know, corner and stuff and you know, just, yeah, that doesn't work.
No,
Don't do that now.
no, and I hope society changes in that. I don't know, or maybe it's just more kinder when you're sick. But you know, in thinking back, I probably maybe I don't know, maybe people caught things from me. You know, my father was like he wasn't a germaphobe, but he was a pharmacist, so you know, I was more cautious than the next because he was just, I mean, he was like ridiculously so, you know, like
Right.
the dishwasher, the you know, the whatever, the aquastat had to be at absolute the temperature of boiling to sterilize. But
One of those. Okay.
yeah, but I'm glad you know, I'll tell you, my sister and I mean, he's passed since, and I'm sorry about this stuff, but we've been thankful. We're like, thank God he brought us up like this because we were able to think, you know, this, it was like it made sense for us. All these things you're supposed to do. And also we were thankful that, you know, we did take other precautions before. And we did always, like you were saying, people don't always wash their hands, which is really odd. But, you know, also, you know,
It is.
sharing things. Like as a kid, you always share things. And when, even as like, I remember in, you know, in school, you share things or out with friends, here,
Right.
taste this. I still did that. Well, I didn't since I was diagnosed. But,
Right,
you know,
right. But I get it. It's like, I don't know, it's just weird. All I know is we just have to do things a little differently, you know. But before we
yes,
go
I know.
further into that, I want to give you the proper intro. I kind of did give an intro before you came on, but just to read a little bit of your bio. So I want to welcome everyone again who we have on live right now. And I want to thank you again, Michelle, for having a little chat with me this evening. So everyone, this is Michele Nadeem Baker, who is the 2021 WeGo Health Patient Leader Collaborator of the Year, as well as co-founder of Kicking Cancer in Heels and CLL Women Strong. Michelle is an active blood cancer patient advocate, influencer, and reporter. Michelle's patient advocacy is really on fire. Okay. She's recently been quoted in national media, including Bloomberg and USA Today. A chronic lymphocytic leukemia diagnosis changed her life, but did not stop her. Starting her patient influencer work with the leading online patient cancer site, Patient Power, known for its credible, unmatched information. She has joined the team as PR advisor and became and continues as CLL reporter and cancer program host, driven to demystify the cancer patient experience for others. Michelle launched her ongoing live video and reports her first day of chemotherapy from the infusion chair. Welcome, Michelle, and I want you to tell everyone a little bit what is chronic lymphocytic leukemia. We know it's in a blood cancer. It's so crazy. It's so many different versions of this blood cancer
There
nightmare.
is.
So what is it?
And first of all, it's like yours, you know, it's like a mouthful. It's like all, you know, yours, multiple myeloma. I remember the spelling. I was just like, I couldn't get it down. And so mine, when I was diagnosed, I was like, I heard the chronic, I heard what I thought at the time was leukemia. And I'm like, what was that? Was there like another C or another L? So it is a blood cancer, and it's basically a blood cancer of your immune system. And I'm sorry, and I'm having some technical difficulty in that my my phone keeps like going dark and I'm not seeing you.
Oh, is it? Because you look perfect.
Okay.
I'm not having,
It could be,
yeah.
we have to plug in a second. But so it does
Okay.
affect your blood and your bone marrow. And your B cells are not healthy at all. I don't know if it's like that with multiple myeloma, but your white blood count for most patients, like a high majority of patients, your white blood count goes out of control. Whereas on some other blood cancers, your white blood count I know is too low. But for
Okay.
CLL, most, not all, because I have met a few where their white blood counts, that doesn't happen. But on the most part, that goes crazy. Your bone marrow gets infiltrated by your CLL because your bone marrow is not doing well. And also for some, your lymph nodes, and I don't know what you heard, but for some of us, your lymph nodes are affected and your spleen usually is sometimes affected. It's going, oh my God, I hope I don't lose you again here. It's doing it again. So you watch and wait. Unlike other cancers, when you're diagnosed, you have to go into what's called watchful waiting or watch and wait or active surveillance.
Yes.
And it would be like smoldering.
Mm-hmm.
They don't call it that for some reason. Smoldering is kind of hot, isn't it? It's like, ooh, you're smoldering. You're so hot, you're smoldering. And, but it goes into this time period and you just wait. Not everyone the majority of patients go through this. You're frozen. Oh, you're there. Okay.
Okay, because you're doing perfect, so I don't know what it's doing on your end, but go ahead.
So for most patients go through this. And for me, once I was diagnosed, that was 2.5 years, and you just wait for it to get worse and worse and worse. And it's very frustrating for new patients. You eventually get used to it. In the beginning, I was like, why can't you treat this? That's kind of, it's just, it doesn't make logical sense, right? I have this, why wait for it to get worse? Just get rid of it.
Right.
But you don't get rid of it permanently. And it comes back. And so you wait for it to get pretty bad. Like this, I just relapsed recently. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, no.
I had gone through a clinical trial. I was on it for many years. I got 2.5 years without treatment. In the last few months of that time, you know, I started getting it presented a little differently. And I just thought, I know I had talked to you and I was like, oh my God, I'm getting so out of shape. I need to, you know, I need to go to the gym. And I just got really big in here. And what it was my spleen was incredibly swollen, enlarged. Wow. And lymph nodes, I had multiple, and I'm watched every 3 months, but they don't do CAT scans every 3 months. And with COVID, you know, you see each other virtually some of the time. But you know, my neck, things had started to really blow up. It's like within 2 months, things just exploded. And things, I guess, had been building up in my abdominal area. And here I was thinking, you know, it was midlife, it was you know, my age, it was because I wasn't going to the gym, even though I was still active. And I can't believe it was that much of it was the lymph nodes in my spleen being enlarged. And I was distorted. I was like ET. Or you know what, and my ribs were like poking, like they bruised me because they were so expanded. It was very interesting. I compared myself to my 8-month pregnant neighbor, and we were about the same size. So,
oh my God.
But you know, the good news is within like 2 weeks, it's not that the medication had totally cleared everything, but I was down and I kept going down. And so now I'm at 3 months on treatment again.
Okay.
And almost everything is back to normal. And I will have to stay on this treatment the rest of my life or go on a trial to see, or a combination trial to see if I can reach, like you strive for, undetectable minimal residual disease or minimal residual disease negative.
Right.
So, but within that time, you know, I've learned so much, I've changed so much and grown, and I've met great people. That's like the best part is you meet these great people.
It's true. You meet these great people and it's always amazing. That's like one of the reasons why I wanted to do this series, because you want to hear other people's stories, you know, other people's journeys. And sometimes I think people may say, oh, you know, no one wants to hear what I went through or whatever, but you'd be surprised, because I think, especially for those newly diagnosed, sometimes you need to see the different sides of whatever it is that you're going through. It really does help, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you
It
know.
does. It does. And I find for me, you know, when I talk to other people, and in the beginning, there was a lot of this. I don't know if you've, like when I met you, so I had never met, I should say never, I had only met one other CLL patient, okay, at first, and that wasn't right away. And that was Andrew Shore, the head of patient power, because I had reached out to
Okay.
him and we started communicating. And then when he
Okay.
was in Boston, he lives in, at the time he may have even been living in Spain, but he was in Boston. We met in person. That was after I had been diagnosed maybe for a year and a half, and I had never met another one because there were no groups here yet. That was back
Right.
in 2012.
Wow.
And I had to uproot my entire life because of CLL. So, you know, when you're diagnosed, you go through all that, oh my God, you know, what's
Yeah.
going to happen? You're asking, and
Exactly.
it's like, how am I going to, you know, I had such a crazy job. I was, and you did too. I was
Mm-hmm.
24/7. You know, we were just talking about how you go to work when you're sick, and I was at the sea level with Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, but they owned 7 cruise lines, and I was their global chief communications officer. I was in charge of communications around the world,
Okay.
and so I was working across multiple time zones, and thanks to social media, like what we're on now, everything, you know, everything seems to be instant, and it is. The news cycle becomes instant, and I was, you know, that was all under me and communications, and if anything happens, good or bad. So I wasn't sleeping at all, you know, like a few hours a
Right.
night for years. And I left all that when I was diagnosed. Part of it was I was living between Miami and Boston, which might sound great and glamorous, and but my husband and family were up north, and I was only in Miami because of work and because of, you know, career, which is nice. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom was up in Massachusetts as well. So I was like, this is crazy. I have no clue what this thing is that I have. I don't know where it's going to take me. But I know that I like just, you know, overnight. It's like left everything, gave my notice where I lived.
Right.
You know, I just moved, started packing, and I was back up here. I'm like, what did I do? You know, then I had my second opinion in Boston. I'm like, I'm not going to need treatment right away. What did I just do? But I
Right.
did it for all the right reasons. And I learned that too, even though I do tend to sometimes go back to that, you know, those working hours of what I'm doing now. But it took me a while to find myself. Did it for you? Was that the same? It took a while for me
I
to
think,
find myself.
yeah, it's funny because, you know, I don't know if it's a cliche thing to say, but when you're diagnosed with any type of cancer, I think you come to, well, for some people, you come to a realization of what is important, and like how you were living, was that necessarily the best thing? You know what I'm saying? I think for me, I've come out of it in terms of like I try to have a positive outlook, and I just really live for the day. You know, I'm in remission. I don't think of, okay, is this going to be good for a year or two? You know, I just kind of just go with the flow. I make sure I get my doctor's appointments. I try to be as healthy as I want. Sometimes if I want to indulge a little bit, okay, I want some more ice cream. You know, if it's like I want to live, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Because this has taken up so much of my life over the years. And so, okay, if it's a break of good news for the next couple of years, I'm going to go for it and just live that way. Not, okay, I got to go back on treatment. No one's ever looking forward to do all of that kind of stuff. Like I said, it's like, I think all of us, we've gone through so much. You kind of just, okay, right here, I'm in this box for today, and I got a lot of stuff to do today. Let me focus on today. And if, God forbid, that pops back up, where we have to revisit and have this conversation again, then we'll just tackle it and, you know, do whatever.
Yeah, and that is how I try to be, and in the present, as you said
Right.
today. And sometimes I fall out of that too, but on the most part, like when things were coming back, I was kind of caught by surprise because, you know, no one wants to go back on treatment, like you said. And also,
Right.
I really thought, I honestly, I had no, because my numbers had been so, my blood levels had been so perfect right along. It came as a big surprise because they had,
Right.
like my doctor even looked at them, she's like, oh, these have got to be wrong. I mean, that's how fast it came back. But, you know, so I knew it would happen someday.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just really the biggest thing was making, which is a wonderful problem, to make a decision. There are so many options now. And you
Yes.
have that now too. And that, and
Yes.
I mean, multiple myeloma
That,
have been having its golden years, right? For treatment.
yes, it really has, because I know what, 14 years, 13, 14 years ago, please. I think it was probably, from my, you know, from my understanding and my experience, it was probably a good 3 drugs, you know, that were like the hot drugs or whatever. But now it's kind of expanded. And I mean, that's a wonderful thing, because you have all of these different options in the case of, God forbid, you do relapse.
Yeah.
Okay, they can look up another batch of something else,
There's,
and maybe that'll be the thing that gets you to, you know, where you want to be.
yes.
So,
And I'm so happy to hear that, that you do live in the present. And I also think it's great that you have incorporated being a trainer. And that's something I,
yeah,
because that would make me, I really think it would make me be more accountable for that, for
right,
working out. If, not to say that it'd be like a job, but I guess it would be kind of like the responsibility of having a job, that I would have to do that. Because I was always great going to the gym, always having to, like, in my mind, it was part of my schedule. But then with COVID, no
right.
gym. And I'm not going back yet because it's a city gym, and city gyms are big, and, you know, there's everybody, students are
I
easy.
remember those experiences back in the day, and it's an interesting experience for some, depending on which ones you go through. We'll just leave that as
That's a
that.
show. It's like, you know, when I was younger and single, it was great, you know.
Right, right. You know, like, yeah, like younger, okay, like, yeah, okay, this is what we'll do. This is crappy, but okay.
Yeah,
But
really.
let me continue, as we were talking about positive attitude. So part of the discussion with this series is, you know, we have the conversation, we break down, you know, just as we're talking. But I do approach each advocate with 3 questions that I have to continue the momentum of the conversation. So since we were talking about positive attitude and stuff like that, okay, do you believe in the positive attitude model of addressing your care and how to cope, or do you get angry and want to break things because you're overly frustrated? Like, we know there's going to be those good days and there's going to be those horrible days. So how do you, you know, group that together, and how do you, you know, move on with that?
In general, I'm a positive person.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, my mother always would say, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. More bees, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I should never say cliches. I always get them mixed up. Yes, bees, not flies. You catch more bees with honey than you do with
Right,
vinegar.
right.
And so she instilled in my head, you know, being positive, and why, you know, be positive. So I've always tried to be positive and found the positive in everything. And that's part of it. And my family, you know, my husband and all, he's extremely positive. So, you know, of course, when I was first diagnosed, yeah, I had my little shock, my little pity party, but then I moved forward. And one of the things I did, and a couple of things, I've changed my whole life, as I had said, um, based on CLL, and also that I don't have the same, I mean, I couldn't work 24/7 now, and
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't. I did go back to it about a year and a half ago on a project I was on, a client I had, and I was sleeping maybe 2 hours a night, and that is not healthy
Mm-hmm.
for us, as we know,
I
for
can
anyone,
believe it.
for
Mm-hmm.
no one.
Mm-hmm.
And I really had to get a hold of myself, and I was living between two lives. You know, I was still, I was doing my patient advocacy, and it had really turned up. I started to say I hadn't met many other patients, and then Healthy Voices really helped change that, where we met.
Right.
And I was living between doing some reporting around that and advocacy, and then I was still doing communications, PR, branding. So I made this decision after that particular project that I was working around the clock, and I was like, you know what, I've got to do one or the other, and I can't work like this. I'm going to give myself a year in advocacy and see what happens. And when I did that, when I just made, when I opened up myself to opportunities, they did start coming in.
Right.
And that's when I started looking at things and doing more. Like, that's when I started with another patient advocate, this Kicking Cancer and Heals. First, we started CLL Women Strong. It was when the pandemic started. A couple of months into it, it was just like, we're feeling kind of lonely out here, and we don't have anyone to talk to. And with women, and I would love to hear what you have to say on the multiple myeloma, but women for CLL, for a long time, you didn't hear much about women getting it, and it was always an old man's disease. And that's all you'd ever hear, men who are around 70. So I felt really marginalized, because I kept seeing, because I'm co-administrator of a very large Facebook group, the CLL support group, I kept seeing young women, like they appeared to be young, joining, and they would join. And I started reaching out to a few just to see, and we started talking. And this other woman and I started this virtual support group, because there wasn't one for women. And we all do wonder if more younger women, I like being younger for something, right? Because we're not younger women, but we are for CLL. And we're wondering, and I really firmly believe this, that that women were ignored. That maybe, because a lot of the symptoms could be seen is, because I was told, night sweats are a big part of CLL. So I didn't know if they were hot flashes. I'd say to my doctor, I don't know if I'm having hot flashes or night sweats. Well, and they have this textbook definition.
Right.
And it's just like, it's really hard to tell. And I do want
So how did they know exactly? Was it a blood test, or how did they know?
CLL.
For CLL.
It's so for me, my primary care physician saw my white blood had gone up a little, and then it went up a little more. So it's only at, let's say, 16,000, but it should only be around between 8,000 and 9,000, and they don't worry about it. And it for, a couple of times it had been there, but I didn't see him that often. So he wanted me to get more blood work, which I did, just another test, and it was still up. And at that point he said I needed to see a hematologist, and I didn't even think about it, what that meant. And
oh my God, this sounds just like my thing. Okay, it really does. And it's so funny, because I really haven't heard anyone say, like, literally, a lot of what you just said is like my life right there. Like my primary care doctor, we go, you have, if you're good with your doctor's appointments, and I know I was. So it's like, okay, go to the doctor, go see Dr. blah, blah, blah. And, I got a call. But, and it's so funny, I just had this conversation with, when was this, like a week ago, telling who I was having a conversation, like my journey. And go to the doctor, pretty good, but I was thinking about leaving him. Sometimes we need different, doctors,
your doctor.
Exactly, and, but one thing I can say about him, he would let you know with the blood work if everything was good. And sometimes that is a big deal. Well, I got a call on a Sunday that, okay, your protein levels are high. And that kind of just was what spiraled the whole thing. And he as well. And then he called a second time, which that kind of like scared me, because he was like, well, did you find it? Because the first call, he was like, you need to find a hematologist. Who knows a hematologist?
Yeah, you know,
Like, come on. Like, it's not like a regular doctor. You know what I'm
that,
saying?
yeah, I didn't even know where I went in the phone, you know, I looked online in the phone book. I'm like, hematologist. I'm like, oh, that was a
Exactly.
hematologist and an oncologist. No, just right? And I was just like, so then I asked someone in my apartment building who I knew, I was just like, do you know anyone in the medical profession who can help me find somebody? So what
Hmm.
did you do? So she had a friend who was a nurse who actually referred me to somebody.
Okay.
And, you know, it just happenstance. Like, if she didn't have that friend, I wouldn't have known about this doctor. But they took like 21 tubes of blood. That's basically how,
Wow.
because and you know, it's different in different areas of the country. But it was sent to
Yeah,
Switzerland.
because, yeah, that's different because I don't recall that for me. Like I said, that's like a whole other conversation. But I don't remember 21 vials of blood.
I can't,
Like the
I
other
can't
stuff
believe
that
I
I had to
remember
do, I
that.
remember. But yeah, that's a lot.
Your eyes
Not
just
for
like,
nothing.
yeah, your eyes were like,
Yeah, yeah, that's a bit much. Um,
so when did they tell you right away? So the hematologist, like, how did you even find one?
eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Okay, whoever was in my health, in network, and just kind of went from there. Who was close to my office at the time? And it was like, okay, let's go there. But that's like a whole conversation in itself because it's something to be said when you are of a certain age, when you're younger, and a lot of these specialists, if you will, are not used to seeing people who are younger, or what's your ethnicity? You know what I'm saying? Because for multiple myeloma, it's deemed to be, first off, the statistics is 5 years, you're going to die, which they need to fix that on Google. Okay.
Me too. That's what I saw the first night. I
Yeah,
saw that.
you know,
For me, it
and
was like,
then,
yeah, three to
and
five
then,
years, 5 to 8 years. I'm like,
exactly. And then, like, the age is, like, usually in your late 70s
so the,
ish, somewhere in there. So it's like, okay, then you walk through the door and it's like, okay, exactly why are you here? Like, I don't know. Why am I here? You know what I'm saying? But it's funny because I'm seeing when I do go for my follow-ups, because I still have to do follow-ups and stuff to make sure I'm still where I want to keep being. Um, it's amazing how many younger people I'm seeing in those rooms.
isn't
Okay?
it? It is.
It's very scary. like,
So does that
like,
mean you've been
okay.
undiagnosed before? This is what I wonder. Or was it that hard to diagnose?
Um, well, like I said, every year we were good with the blood work. So if nothing was detected like a year prior, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Maybe it was something, maybe he didn't catch. I don't know. I don't know how they do whatever they do. But for him, his thing was the protein level. He didn't know anything about multiple myeloma. He just knew that that shouldn't be based on what the numbers were. The numbers were rather high. I don't even remember what they were, but it shouldn't have been what he was seeing. And he was like, okay, well, that's like blood related. Seek a hematologist. Okay. They don't tell you the flip side of that. It's not only a hematologist. I guess you can start that way, but it's like that in between. You still need that specialist who knows a little bit more. Like there's a difference between a hematologist and, let's say, a myeloma
Exactly.
oncologist. You know what I'm saying? And please, like I said, that could be like a whole long conversation.
Well, I
But
didn't
with
know
that
that.
said, I did get, so okay, so it was my primary, then it's hematologist who I eeny meeny mode. And I didn't, that was like another conversation that wasn't gonna work where he was going because he was like, boom, you should do boom, boom, boom. And it's like, huh? And I'm glad that I spoke up for myself. Me and my husband, we looked at the pros and the cons, and it's like, eh. And then I had a doctor friend. She was like, nah, basically get a second opinion. And I did that, and I was lucky that one of the doctors at the time, I don't know if I'll say his name, but he was a well-known myeloma specialist, but he's now retired. And some kind of way we got in contact. I don't know if that's because of my doctor friend. Like, there's some parts of the memory where I'm in 2022, how I even got there is like mind-boggling. But whatever happened, I was able to, I think, emailed or fax whatever we did how many years ago, like from where we're at today. And he's like, oh no, you have smoldering myeloma. Hello. So if I would have started that treatment prior, I don't know, I probably wouldn't be here, to be honest with you, because the drugs at that particular time wasn't the best. And being the age that I was, who knows how my story would have turned if I would have said, okay, doctor, let me go with whatever you're saying. You know, really being an advocate and speaking out is like so important. That's like I may do a whole episode just speaking of that, because
You have to
you you you
advocate, or
you
else
respect our doctors, right? But sometimes they do get it wrong. Okay.
there's nothing wrong with pushing back on that, you know. And I think you and I probably have, neither of us has probably ever been shy about speaking up when we want to. However, when it comes to our health,
Oh,
it's
girl, you
very
don't know.
different. It's
This
very
public
different, right?
speaking thing and speaking, this is so not me 20 years ago. Like, but then with that said, because my friends, they'll say I'm a very tough and strong personality, you know, but I think being diagnosed with this, it has pushed me to be like more stronger. You know, I will give you my opinion. I don't sit back and meek, oh, you should do this, and then I just do. So that's definitely not me. But in terms of being as vocal, I don't think I was that, even though some friends would probably say, no, no, girl, you was like that before. But I don't recall it. Like I'm so strong headed now. I don't think I was as strong headed back then. You know what I'm saying? But
I
but
do. I
you
do.
know,
And also when it comes to health, like I would help my mom. That was,
right,
because I was helping her. And then, but I
right.
did see how her age, and I think sometimes being a woman, because she had older doctors, I would see that. And I think that helped train me in a way for what I
Hmm.
needed to do. Uh,
Right.
Once I got out of my the fetal position in the first few days after diagnosis and going to Dr. Google, which you should never do, is
You
you
should
found.
never do. You should never do, but let's be honest, it's very helpful in terms of things to ask, and you really have to use a little senses about you in terms of, is this real? Like the truth versus maybe not. But at least bringing that to whoever you're going to seek care to, like, well, is so and so and so, just to have like a conversation and they can tell you if it's yay or nay. So it does help a little. I'm not going to totally
It
like
does
say
on
no, no,
certain things.
but you shouldn't like, oh, my nose is bleeding. Google says it's so and so. Like, come on, that you should know that that's not how we do stuff.
Well, it is, and also I learned too to believe in not right what sites are more credible. And in the beginning,
Exactly.
yeah, I was just
That's
like,
that's definitely important. That's something I think you learn as you go. But let me ask another question. So much happening in the world. We're doing the most. Like, if it's the COVID, it's just so much going on. But would you want to see what the future holds in space and in treating your condition? And if you could afford it, would you go, and why?
say that the first part of it again. If I could see the
Okay.
future,
If you could see what the future holds in space, because
yes,
that's the whole
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Now that we've destroyed this world, okay, let's see what's on the moon and Mercury or whatever. Okay, if you could, in terms of treating your condition, if you could afford it, would you go, and why? Like, do you think you could start anew with CLL. Maybe it's something different that you can like get to like maybe wipe this out, or like, what is your thought?
If they would tell me that there's a cure, I would do it. And then
Okay.
I'd come back with what I learned perhaps there.
Okay.
That's thinking about that, because one thing I have also learned is, you know, when you have, it's not easy to have great friends.
Right.
And as part of the support system, and also in addition to my friends that I've had for many years and family here, the women that I have met that are in, and also men in the support groups I'm in, and in my CLL Women Strong group, we're like, and you, it's like a sisterhood, right? Or a blood
Right.
sisterhood.
Right.
To do a play on words with what we have. If I could bring everybody with me, I'd go.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and live lavishly. Do I get to have like a really cool spaceship? I don't know.
It all depends what options people are given for those who do want to go. They'll probably give, okay, what's his name? Elon Musk. He had the top tier. When it's available for everyone else, it may not be that top tier. It may be levels D and E.
Business class versus
So,
economy.
exactly. So it
Yeah.
all depends.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. It's really one that makes you pause to think. What about you? Would you go?
No. I'm content with whatever is whatever.
Yeah. I
Like
mean, like
where I'm
I
at.
said, a quick
Okay.
trip to get cured and come back.
Yeah, no, I'm content. And the third question that I want to ask, what's your take on self-care? How important do you think it is to your survival where you're at today?
It's hugely important. Well, within self-care, I consider mental health and a positive attitude. Your first question, I consider that part of self-care and staying positive and staying in the now. And
Right.
trying not to, as hard as it can be when you know, on test day, you know, worrying about how those tests are going to come out. If you can just stay in the present and know that, you know, I'm going to be okay, and just staying there. But that's part of self-care is my mental health. And also, I could have said before that physically for self-care, I was taking great care of myself before COVID. And I'd be in the gym at least three to four times a week. And also walking our dog. But now I can't say that. And I have not been as diligent. I've been trying to get back into it. You know, at the most now, I mean, I'll go on long walks. I see a friend has joined us, and she and I take our dogs on walks. Hi, Laura. Thanks for joining us. And that's one thing, but also I will exercise in our gym twice a week. We have a home gym. It doesn't, you know, it barely has anything.
Right.
We have weights, we have an area, we have a TV, and
Right.
And TRX. So that really helps. But it's still not the same. You know, I wish that there was, but I believe that is so important to keep ourselves physically in shape as well, because it does help with everything. It's, you know, when we should be doing that anyway, is trying
Right.
to stay in good health and eating. You know, like you said, I am not going to deprive myself of something really good every now and then.
Right.
But on the most part,
Right.
I was brought up with the Mediterranean diet, and that's pretty much how I eat. And yeah, I love my dark chocolate. Do not take my dark chocolate. You know, I'll have I nearly had a meltdown the other night. There's no dark chocolate for me to have.
Oh no.
But that's all. And
I think
keeping positive people around you is also, I think, a good part of self-care. And
I agree.
And what about so what else for self-care? Yes, I got into
I mean, there's so many things. For me, just to jump in there, one thing that I used to like to do over the years, it didn't matter how much it cost, I would do it as often as what I'm doing now, because I haven't done it, but to seek a masseuse.
Oh, yeah.
That was a thing where like, okay, Loretta, or Roberta at the time, Roberta, can you put me in for Saturday? Because I couldn't do it on a weekday, you know, because of work. Can I come over at 8 o'clock?
That's a
Okay.
really good thing to do.
And that, I didn't care how much it cost. That was something that I did a lot. And like my friends would be like, "Oh, you get a massage?" Because right away you think it's like a lot of money, but whatever. You make a way. Because for me, I guess at that time, that was what my self-care was, you know.
And, you know, that is, I do that.
You
I
know.
was doing that as well. I remember getting to a point and I just started getting them done. Massages. And
Hmm.
when I lived in Florida, you know, there's everything in your building. So there was a salon and they had, I used to get massages when I could once a week. And then also it's great to keep, for lymphedema. That was my excuse for that, for
Okay.
getting them. And before COVID, I was getting them, like you were saying, it's like, it's really good it's good for so many things. You're right. I forgot about that. Yoga,
Yeah,
I'm trying to do.
it's good for so many. And of course, you know, for those listening like here now or later, you still have to watch what you're doing with that because especially for those in the myeloma community, not sure with the CLL, but you know, get a masseuse who knows what they're doing. You know, if you have lytic lesions, okay, you don't want them, oh, like my spine, I have that little crank in my spine. Like, that's probably not the best thing. You know what I'm saying? But if it's
Right.
something, I don't know. To me, I feel sometimes it's like common sense. You know, if you're going to the masseuse who has his elbow in your back, like breaking it, like I saw something today and I was like, sis, are you kidding? She had just had a baby. She's this reality person, and her husband had like a masseuse to come to the house because you know it's COVID and stuff. So it's a traveling masseuse, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. But he was like, really, he did something and cracked her neck. I was like, yeah, my masseuse didn't do all that.
Whoa.
Okay. But
That's a little
she
scary.
felt, I felt her though, because I know sometimes I'll have, even with exercising and stuff, sometimes there's certain things you can't really get that nick out of. But he was in there and she jolted, but you could tell she was good. I don't know if I would do it, but you know.
And so the other thing with self-care is, and, you know, a lot of people went through this, but let's just say that I do get my hair colored and it's not
That's
because
fine.
it's not, you know, I did it I now do it because I really need to get it colored. Before I used to do it, you know, to get highlights, but now, yeah, I have a date and they're great. They open on a day that they're closed for me. The gentleman who does my hair,
Okay.
to keep it safe for me. And of course, well, the mask mandates are going away, but he'll wear a
Right.
mask. And when I wasn't doing it, I have to say that I was not doing a good job myself. I was striped and I tried different colors, and that's not good for mental health when you don't look good.
Right, right. Like you want to feel well, you know, or feel good, you know. That's like a whole another conversation in terms of like, do you feel better when you're dressed up? You know, I think I wrote something not long ago, like when you go to treatment, like some people, are you comfortable? Or you know, like, do you make a thing of how your appearance when you go in for treatment? Some people, they want to be comfortable, which I totally understand. Some people don't care, and then you have some people like me, like when I see my doctor, I want him to know that my positive aura, you know. And I think that gives off energy too. I think when the doctor sees you look away, you look healthy, you know, you look good, you know, and it's just the whole, whether it's a mental thing, I think it does work. You know, you want to,
Look,
for me, and I'm not that person anyway, just to roll out the house looking any kind of way. I'm not that girl. So, you know,
no,
everybody's different.
look good, feel good. And
Yes.
you know, I remember that used to be somebody, I want to say the American Cancer Society used to have a campaign called Look Good, Feel Good. And I just know it's true. You know, it makes me feel better. And yes, when I went in for treatment, this is how the name Kicking Cancer in Heels, it's one of the reasons the name. I always made sure I had on, they wouldn't necessarily be dressy heels, but like I'd I make sure it was, I always had heels on of some sort. I might have a
Okay.
chunky heel on a boot, might not even be the highest of heels, but I always went in looking, like I wasn't sick. Because that was
Right.
important to me, because if I didn't look sick, I didn't feel sick in a way. Although not every day was great, but I would do that. And, that's part of the thing with the kicking cancer in heels is, yeah, let's just, kick it. It doesn't have to be a high heel, but
Right.
it just
That's
really,
cool.
yeah. But I did always the heels, and there'd be jokes like, the nurses would all be joking around about the shoes, my shoes. So
Right. That's wonderful.
I could see
So
you going in there and your style, because you have your style.
I do have a style about me. And again, I'm from the fashion industry, so that's my thing. Like I said, I'm not going to be coming in there looking crazy. Things are going to match. Even if I'm wearing sneakers, I'm going to have it coordinate a certain kind of way. But as we wrap this up, because we went a little over, which was fine with me, because I think this was like a wonderful conversation. But what parting words would you give those who are newly diagnosed with CLL?
For all of you who have just been diagnosed with CLL or any type of cancer, any kind of blood cancer, make sure you see a specialist in your particular type of blood cancer. We even spoke a little bit about it. You had mentioned it before, because they know the ins and outs. They're not
Right.
guessing at what the best thing for you is. And also, as much as I hated hearing this, don't go to Dr. Google. Make sure that you ask your questions, or if you do, make sure you're going to like what the Cleveland Clinic reports. But you may not even understand those reports yet, because it is an entirely different language. Learn as much as you can about it, because I believe that a knowledgeable patient is their own best self-advocate, because then you can start to be able to ask questions on your own behalf of your doctors. And keep a
I
positive
totally
attitude.
agree.
Kick that cancer. Keep
I
thinking.
totally agree. Totally agree. Like, you don't have to be a scientist, to try to speak to, these doctors or whoever come in contact with, but at least show a little savvy in terms of what you have going on, and just ask as many questions as you need to ask, and feel comfortable when they tell you something. And if you don't understand the first time, ask them again. It's okay to ask your doctor to repeat themselves. And
Yeah.
if they pop an attitude, that means you need another doctor.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
You need to break up with them and go to somebody new.
Definitely. Definitely.
This has
But
been great.
I really enjoyed this. This was like phenomenal. Thank you so much, Michelle. I wish we could go further, but I want to be respectful for those who did pop on, and those who see it later and like, oh, this is so long, so I don't want that.
We'll have
But
to do it again. That's
we'll do, like, because we mentioned like 2 conversation points that could be like an episode in itself. So we'll hit up separately and have a chatty chat.
It was so great seeing you. Thank
It
you
was
again
good
for
seeing
inviting
you as
me.
well. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us. See you next month.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Bye.